I'm personally familiar with both Crossing the Chasm and Inside the Tornado, as well as a little bit about Zone to Win. But maybe for the purposes of our audience, you could give at least a little bit of an overview of what chasm theory is all about with this technology adoption life cycle and with the tornado effects that can ensue. So why don't we give you a couple of minutes to go over that?
Sure. So the technology adoption life cycle simply says that different people with different strategies for dealing with disruption come into the market at different times. So they talk about the early adopters, and we said, well, those are the technology enthusiasts and the visionaries. And they jump in early. They want to get ahead of the herd. They're excited. They make their buying decisions based on their own analytics. They don't really consult other people a lot. They're gonna kind of make their own call themselves. And so when you're starting with a disruptive innovation, you target those people to get that early market notoriety and visibility. The challenge is most people don't buy that way. Most people buy by consulting the experts, by talking to their peers, word of mouth marketing, et cetera. We call those people the pragmatists. Sometimes they're called the early majority. And those people need to see references. They need to see proof of concept, all these kind of things. And you don't have it. That's what creates the chasm. So the chasm is that period where they're looking for more proof of concept than you have. And so crossing the chasm was a strategy about saying, how can you accelerate that first adoption among pragmatists of a disruptive innovation? There's a whole set of strategies around how you do that. If you get across the chasm and you establish that beachhead market, you can expand into adjacent segments, and you're kind of growing your market. And if all of a sudden the pragmatist people who essentially are looking at each other saying, have you done this yet? Have you done this yet? And in the chasm, the answer always is, well, I haven't done it yet. Well, I'm not going to do it either, right? But in the tornado, as you've referred to, that's the opposite effect, where now the kids call it FOMO, fear of missing out. All of a sudden, now everybody has to have cloud computing. Everybody has to have mobile apps. Everybody has to have. That creates a huge influx in demand. And that's where all these dramatic stock prices for high-tech companies come from, because all of a sudden they take over an entire category, like Tesla's taking over, automobiles with electric automobiles, that sort of thing. So that's the tornado. That requires a third management discipline. So that's a very different problem to solve than anything you've seen before then. And then eventually, demand, everything comes back to equilibrium. And there's a fourth model called Main Street, which is, okay, now you're in a market that's growing somewhat with the gross national product. It looks like a traditional industrial or consumer market. The point is those four inflection points, we call them the early market. When you cross the chasm, it's very specific segments. We call it the bowling alley. For every segment, it's a bowling pin. The tornado and Main Street, every one of those has a different management model for success. And so the challenge, if you're a startup, is how do I get the talent for my next move? Because probably it's not inside your company. And if you're an established company and you're really good at Main Street, how in the world do you get to get the next wave? And how do you fund it? And how does that work? And that's what Zone to Win was all about.